Perfect. So we are live. Hello and welcome to the October Meetup of Expa, or Halloween Meetup of Expa. Today we have a very interesting topic revolving around HTML5 and WebGL technologies for game development. And just before we dive into the program itself, some formalities here. So this is the Digi and Game Center, and we are partnered with University of Applied Sciences YAMK, Business Development Services of Jyväskylä, Fingersoft, Digi, Seltimil, Keski-Suomen Konttoripiste, and Game Makers of Finland. And our partners enable these amazing meetups, so big thanks for them. To become a member of Expa, please visit expa.fi. As a member, you can support the community, get great opportunities in, game development and finding jobs in the game industry, networking with great people, coming to great events, and so on. So expa.fi, and there you can find the membership information. Join also our Slack channel. There are over 400 professionals all over Finland in the games industry doing exciting stuff. There's recruitment opportunities, there's talk about different technologies. Basically, it's a professional channel for bouncing any ideas. And these meetups that we do, they are about sharing information very openly, basically companies, professionals talking about their experience, and an opportunity always to learn and network with interesting people. With that said, remember to ask questions, take pictures if you want. If you take pictures and post them, remember to use hashtag ExpaJKL. And we are streaming live at Twitch, and this program goes so that we will first have a talk, and after the talk we will have a discussion session with the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please just write them down to the chat already during the presentation so I can pick them up during the Q&A. Perfect. What else? I think that's everything. Sorry, we're a little bit behind in the schedule. That's because, trains and stuff like that, but not too big. So now I'm very excited to bring to the stage from Quicksave the Partnership Experience Manager, Ren. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here in Jyväskylä. It's my first time here. It's been a while since I've done a talk, so it feels good, feels right. Right, so yes, I'm Ren from Quicksave Interactive, and I'm going to talk about the Quicksave Toolkit for making HTML5 and WebGL games and applications. I'll start off with just showing our little show reel we have here. Get out the way. So this was just a show reel of our Quicksave Toolkit, our UI editor and machine editor, and some of the games that we've made over the past several years. Let's see, can I continue with this? Oh. Oops. Alright, but first a bit about me. My name is Ren, again, from Quicksave Interactive. I've been living in Finland for 6 years. I joined the game industry about 3.5 years ago. I am the Partner Experience Manager at Quicksave, which, despite such a strange title, it means that I create video tutorials, demos, documentation, I give talks. I get to do a lot of fun things. Prior to that, I was actually the senior gameplay programmer at Quicksave, which means I also have a technical background for all of this stuff, so it works out really well for me. Then, outside of Quicksave, I'm the IGDA Finland DigiHub lead. I have been for the past 2 years. I'm also the Finnish Game Jam Vice President and an organizer for Leadership Day, which I hope all of you will attend next year as well. And I'm so glad that I did not misspell any of this, because I did not proofread any of this. It's one of those situations where, I've lived in Finland for long enough to not be able to speak Finnish, but also haven't really spoken a lot of English enough to properly maintain my linguistic articulation. But everything looks good. Now, for Quicksave, it was founded in 2017. Industry veterans, Elina Arpanen, Ville-Kalle Arpanen, and Timo, let's call him Timo K. I can't pronounce his last name, all right? Some Finnish names are hard for me. But yes, Quicksave has existed for 7 years now, and we've done HTML5 and WebGL games internally. We've created, we've published them externally, but we've created tools internally for making these games. And because there's such a lack of HTML5 and WebGL tools, we have now released our tools to the public so that other people can also make HTML5 and WebGL games and applications. We've also had partners like SpaceApe, Lionsgate, and Zaibatsu, which, it's Jyväskylä. And our team here has grown quite a bit. I like this photo. Everybody is nice and leveled, so I feel particularly taller. Right, let's start off with the first member of our toolkit family, the UI editor. It's a great tool for artists and designers for creating interactive elements based on Pixie.js. Now, the main problem with creating web games is that, again, tools are scarce. And because there's such a lack of tools, the workflow and the pipeline between artists and coders can be quite tedious, quite slow. And when you have a slow pipeline, you're not reaching production fast enough, which means you're not making money fast enough. And as much as we all like making games, we all kind of also want to make a living too. Yes, and then there's also the fact that making web games might require knowledge of JavaScript or TypeScript or understanding certain libraries like Phaser or Pixie.js, and all these require programming knowledge to do things like animations, transitions, really fancy graphics, things that you would need. And normally in, let's say, using Unity or Unreal or any other tooling that's out there for conventional game development, you have an artist who's creating the artwork for the game, for the application. And then they can see the art right within the engine, and that's very useful. But when it comes to making web games using conventional web technologies that are out there right now, it's a bit different. There's a lot of back and forth between artists and coders, and it can get pretty annoying for the coders to be told every 10 minutes that they have to move an element 2 pixels to the left or 2 pixels to the right, or an artist needs to wait to see what the end result is for what they've created. And that's where the UI editor comes in. It's a data-driven art tool which can be used to create visual elements. It gives artists complete agency to create their interfaces and experiences in a what you see is what you get way, whatever you create within the editor will be exactly how it should look in the game. So there's less back and forth between artists and coders, which speeds up the pipeline. And the UI editor is a no-code tool, so artists don't need to worry about the implementation side. It creates a great separation of concerns. There's a lot less overhead when creating high-fidelity animated UIs. Now the UI editor is quite feature-rich. We have a wide range of visual effects, transitions, particle effects, filters, support for spine animations, and sound as well. It's built on the Pixie.js framework, so it's high performant. Pixie actually just released Pixie 8 this year, which utilizes WebGPU, which is fantastic, really exciting stuff. And we use a hierarchy tree to easily organize our UI layers, so everything is presented as is. It's easy to read, easy to follow, very easy for non-coders to, or non-game developers to even understand as well. And yes, we do have support for many elements that you would see in conventional game development and also web development, such as containers, gradients, text, sprites, video, etc. And then there's localization support, which is cherry on top. You know, being able to localize your game, your UI in a quick and easy fashion is one of the high points of our editors. Next in our toolkit, we have the machine editor, another no-code tool for creating finite state machines based on a technology known as XState. Problems here is that, again, with web development or making web games, there are no tools available for controlling logical states and transitions. XState is a great library, but it's extremely complex if you don't have a GUI and you have to do all the JavaScript and TypeScript yourself. It's very tedious of a library. Very powerful, very tedious. There's a trade-off there. Yes, requires knowledge of TypeScript, of course. And yeah, it also requires programmers to understand the game flow, which, if you've done game design, you can't always trust your programmers to understand your game flow. It's a bit of a risk there that you're taking. Personally speaking, I've probably pissed off my game designer a few times back in the day, not reading the 30 pages of game design documentation that he spent hours meticulously crafting. But yeah, it's good. It's good to give the designer the power to create the flow themselves. Yeah, and aside from all that, when it comes to creating finite state machines, there are certain states that would be very useful, which aren't present within XState. So it's nice to have the machine editor, which is a tool for designers, game designers, to create the UX, the flow of the game. You know, how the players will go from state A to state B. Do they want to go to state D instead of C? You know, what direction will the player go in? But yes, this removes the complexity of finite state machines in XState so that everything is presented in a visual representation where whoever is using the machine editor, the designer, can see all of the events, they can see all of the states, they can see exactly how the game will look within the what you see is what you get viewport there, and they can see all of the layers as well that are in the game. Yes, again, this improves the separation of concerns so that artists can focus on the art, the look, the visuals of the game, and designers can focus on the flow and the user experience. And coders, of course, they still have a role, and that's implementation. And that's where, well, I almost forgot. Features of the machine editor. Right, machine editor integrates well with the UI editor. You know, we've worked on these tools for several years, so naturally they should work well together. perfect for designers. Yes, yes. Ah, of course. Standards are important. Because this is based on Xstate, anything you create within the machine editor is based on the SC-XML standard. So you can ensure that you have a robust finite state machine. The last thing you want are bugs in your state machines. You know, you wouldn't want your players accessing a state that they shouldn't, unless you're really catering for that speedrunning community. But yeah, as I mentioned before, Xstate does lack a few important states that does make making finite state machines more usable for games, such as conditional states and guards as well. And then we have event-based transitions, so that using events, we can actually dictate which state the players should enter. And those can be triggered in code, or they can be triggered in the machine editor itself with no code. But right, yes, we've talked about artists, we've talked about designers. What about the programmers? Well, that's where we also have the game tech, where we have multiple libraries which can be used to extend the editors with code. So everything from game clients to game servers, entity component systems, and my nightmare, hexagonal coordinate systems, QRS systems. I still have, we've made a hexagon game in the past, and I still have nightmares about hexagons. Yeah, and much more. We have the API references available online for all of our libraries, and these are kept up to date with new developments, for both internal and external people within the company and outside the company. And then there's my favorite part about all of this, the tutorial videos, which are short videos about the editors, how to build things with the editors, how to use them. Great for beginners, especially even those unfamiliar with state machines or node-based game development. Tutorials are always incoming, and as you can see, there's a lot of me, so I'm definitely not biased as to why this is my favorite. Right, fairly short presentation, but always fun to be on stage. Usually I'm back there as IGDA Finland's DigiHub lead, so it feels good being here. QR code for Quicksave's website, and you can feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Thank you. Oh, excellent.
Now you can hear me with some, Halloween style echo, I guess. Can you tune it down a bit, please? Thank you so much, Ren. That was epic. Yeah, I believe that was like a summarization of what is actually quite a lot of work that you put into developing these tools, and basically the customer first thinking in how to make them accessible and making them actually work for the client. So really interesting stuff. Now, just to kind of root this discussion a little bit. How many of you have ever made any web games? And how many of you are interested in making more web games in the future? So, okay.
It'd be awkward if I didn't.
Yeah, it's good to have that. But yeah, because there was a lot of workflow and basically summarization of the tools and everything. But if we just come down to what type of games we're talking about, what kind of is the Quicksave portfolio, and how you have founded your way to making these type of games. So just to give a little bit of context around this. So yeah, can you tell a little bit about the web games and your business around it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always fun to talk about that because conventionally the assumption is when it comes to web games, they can be quite casual, hyper casual, and so on. very simple games. Yet, in Quicksave, with Quicksave Toolkit, having developed quite a few of them, less casual, a bit more complex, because you end up with multiplayer games. Like one of the earliest games I created was a multiplayer game, which is very fun. It was a kind of like a robot fighting strategy game, very chess-like. Again, hexagonal grids, but yes. So it ends up being a lot less casual and a lot more like like an actual game you would play, created from an engine like Unity, like Unreal. Well, I guess not 3D or like graphically high fidelity is Unreal, but whatever. And then we have games that pachinko style games, building games. We have farming simulators, games that are less, kind of break the mold, break the assumption of them simply being just simple point and click casual games.
Yep. Yeah, but the reason I'm asking this, we already had a podcast recording with Ren, by the way, but yeah, as I kind of elaborated there, in Jyväskylä, we are, especially the education here is quite Unity focused, and like Finland in general is like 90% mobile, or perhaps that's now changing a little bit, but still just to kind of bring some understanding, like what's the business around web games like, and what are the clients that you work with, and the platforms that you work with, and so on?
Right. Well, publishing is a major part of why we tackle the web game paradigm. Creating web games is definitely a business decision, because you avoid getting lost in the App Store. You avoid paying additional fees to Apple for IAPs. You essentially have a lot more control over where you publish your games. So yes, there are platforms online that you can publish your games to, like Facebook or Zoom or Crazy Games, and a few up-and-coming ones that I can't really talk about all that much. But yes, it's a growing industry, especially on the publisher side as well.
Yeah, yeah. So if we think about like developing these tools for the developers, it's a kind of a, it already tells that there's a journey behind it. Can we really work on the ridiculous? Can you do something about it, please? But yeah. When you make tools for developers, obviously there's already like history behind it. You've been making your own games and identifying that what is actually needed, and created your own tools to be able to develop those games, and now you're kind of releasing those tools out there in the world. Can you, I don't know, quickly summarize the company history and how you have come here, and what's the vision that you're now thriving for?
Well, I suppose the main message is to enable artists and designers to empower them to create high fidelity web games and web UIs, giving them that agency, that control. There's aside from there being a huge market gap for tools within the web game space, there's also a lot of need for designers and artists to have a entry point into the game industry. I mean, if you're a coder, you're pretty much set when it comes to having a job. But tool for artists and designers, give them more power when it comes to developing, creating, just doing things within the game industry. At least that's one way I see it. As for the company itself, I know that they definitely do want to target that gap where we have people who want to make web games. We have partners who have tried in the past. They've tried using just normal Pixie.js. They've tried using just JavaScript and TypeScript, and it becomes such a tedious hassle creating games with no tools at all. And when they finally have our tools in their hands, especially the artists and the designers, they're so happy, they're so they're praising us because they have these tools, and they're able to actually create their games a lot quicker, go from conception to production in a much faster state.
Yes. So what you're basically talking about here is that like you have found the like market niche, nice place to be. Obviously, providing a solution where there was none. So, are we talking about a totally blue ocean thing? Is there anyone competing in your space?
Yeah, of course there are people competing in it, and that's perfectly fine because we've talked to our competition and they love us. So, competition is always a funny thing to talk about in Finland because I'm from the US. I'm a very competitive person, and every time like we meet with our competitors competitors, I end up talking to my boss like, so you talk to our competitors, and he's like, well, this is Finland. There is no competitors here. I'm like, okay, that's cool. We can all be friends, I guess.
Well, I think that's very native to the Finnish game industry. We don't ever talk about a domestic market where such a small amount of people and like tiny packed companies here, so that basically, everything is born global anyway in the games industry. So, I guess that leads to like if there are no competitors in Finland, are there clients in Finland? Where are your operations? Where, globally speaking, can you give any?
There's not much I can say without violating some NDA. But yeah, most of our partners are in Finland. I can say a few, like Sapia, for example, and of course Lionsgate, Zaibatsu, still our partners, and we have a couple of other companies within Finland, at least 2 or 3 more in Europe, rest of Europe, and then maybe 1 or 2 across the ocean. At least I can say that much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for elaborating that much. That already kind of paints a picture. By the way, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. You can probably tell that I'm a business person, so I tend to ask businessy questions. So if you really want to learn more about the tools and the toolkit, specifically, for example, a project you're doing or something that you're interested in building, just go ahead and use the opportunity because we're here for it. But if there are no questions from the audience, I will carry on the discussion here. So perhaps also can you shed a light a little bit on yourself, and not just the company and the tools here, but basically you said that you've been in Finland for 6 years. Your resume shows that you're very active in the games industry, so in the IGDA, in the Finnish Game Jam, doing many things, also setting up the leadership day and all of that. So how has that worked out for you, and what kind of role does that volunteer activity play in your career history?
Well, I mean, I think it was maybe, I want to say at least 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, I started volunteering with IGDA Finland at Leadership Day. Didn't really know what I was signing myself up for. Thought I would just be, watching a door or something, but it ended up being a lot more organizational duty, as volunteering is. And I just really liked seeing so many people just file into Helsinki City Hall, listening to talks, and being able to meet all these people who I haven't met ever, while living in Finland. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started attending more meetups, started talking to more people, and eventually I found myself actually doing a podcast with the current chairperson and another person with IGDA Finland, and they needed somebody to take over Digi Hub. And I was like, okay, I could do that. This was during a darker period in recent events, COVID. And Digi Hub came about because it was during a time, it was a hub that could still have meetups during a time where we couldn't have physical meetups. So naturally I took over that because I wanted to do something with the community. I wanted to be, an organizer. I wanted to, have meetups and talk to more people. And it's worked out really well because it's given me a lot of opportunity to give back to the community, to host my own events and meet speakers and other people who are just really eager and excited to be part of the game industry. And I really feed off that energy. It's just been a fantastic experience.
Yeah, so you got to do a lot of stuff like you mentioned, like streaming and setting up the tech for many types of events and running the things and probably learning on site and on the spot and all of that, what we are also experiencing here often. Highly recommended. It's a fast learning lane.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely recommend volunteering for IGDA Finland or Finnish Game Jam if you prefer. Volunteering for a Finnish Game Jam. I kind of have to shoehorn both because I represent both. But yeah, it's I've seen a lot of quite a number of my friends and acquaintances actually get jobs and opportunities through their volunteering by being active members of the community. For me personally, it helps me out a lot with my day-to-day job to actually know people, to be able to talk to people, and to have opportunities like this where I can come to Jyväskylä and talk, and all of it's paid for, which is great.
And that's a really interesting thing, actually, like career development-wise, that you have like a technical background, but now you're it's like marketing and communications, your partnership experience manager role, in the sense that you're talking a lot, you're presenting a lot, you're making these tutorials and all of that. So how did that actually happen? How did you find yourself in that role, like after years of being a technical person?
Yeah, that's a weird paradigm shift, if anything. So what had happened was that we have partners, of course, but we did not have a proper way to onboard them to our toolkit. And in order for that to happen, you need somebody with the technical knowledge to teach your partners or demo your toolkit or technology or whatever you're making to your partners. And this was the case for us. We needed somebody on the tech side to hang out with the partners, answer their questions, teach them how to use the toolkit. This worked out really well for me because I have that that live streaming background because I volunteered. I learned live streaming and how to set up equipment and how to be on camera through volunteering. And because I had that knowledge, I was able to hop on a camera, set up a little studio in our office, hop on the camera, set up the recording equipment, and just start recording tutorial videos. And yeah, it went really well. The partners were extremely grateful. They actually paid for the tutorial videos, which just encouraged us to make more and to add more features to the toolkits as well, based on their feedback. And then, aside from just making tutorial videos, I then started doing demos of what we create with the toolkit, because the more I began using it, the more excited I got, and the more I learned as well myself about all the cool things we could make using the toolkit. And yeah, so I do a lot less programming nowadays. Still do, got to keep the wits sharp and all. But I kind of do like where I'm at when it comes to being able to talk and have a career that's essentially talking.
I think this also brings us back to the toolkit and onboarding people to the toolkit, and how is it? How can people and companies access it? What's the model? So, for example, if people here were interested in trying out, are there any opportunities?
Yes, there is a contact form on the tools website. If you go to that, click the little contact us button, we can actually set up a demo, an evaluation, and distribute a license. Right now there isn't a quick download and play because our toolkit is on a license basis. So it's more of a apply for a license, and then you get the license, and then you can use the toolkit.
Can you elaborate a little bit? Obviously you have probably licenses for different size companies and so on, but if there are just developers out there who would love to try out and kind of see the power of it and expand their thinking in game development. Are there any opportunities or a form of license for that?
It's more of a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
We can talk about it.
So yeah, if you're interested in trying these tools, then you really have to get Ren's LinkedIn over here and get in touch, and then learn more. But okay, because yeah, this everything that you talk about really actually reminds me of what's happening with Unreal Engine and like the Unreal evangelist Ari Arnbjörnsson, who is doing very similar stuff like you are, like talking about the tool and making tutorials for people and really engaging the community. So well, we all know that there's like a massive community around the engine and so on, but is there this type of aspirations to what you do? Are you looking to build a developer community of your own and basically empower the community and also get back from them?
Well, Ari is definitely an inspiration to me. Yeah, of course, building community. I mean, as DigiHub lead and VP of Finnish Game Jam, kind of already do that outside of work. So I feel like doing talks like this, visiting other cities, is a step towards building a community around Quicksave as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Unity and Unreal, and it's not, we're called a toolkit, we're not an engine, because we don't want to say that it's us versus them. Rather, because the toolkit, getting a bit technical, because the toolkit exports all of its data in JSON, all of these can be used with Unity. It can be used in Unreal. This can make it easy for, if you come from a Unity background or an Unreal background, to easily pick up our tools and also use them in an environment you feel comfortable with. So yeah, building community around the toolkit is great, but also tapping into the communities that already exist and showing them that we have a tool that's more specifically geared towards the web, with the web methodologies, the web games in mind, is also something we strive for.
Yeah, that actually brings to mind, like, what is acquiring new clients like for you? Do you like find those developer communities and dive into them and then like, ta-da, this is what I have, or what is it like?
Well, so far a lot of it has been them approaching us. When we have a fairly, I mean, our founders have been in the industry for years. They're quite notable, but we have a bit of a presence, I would say, in terms of being one of the few companies that has toolings for web games and web UI with HTML5 and WebGL, and a lot of our clients, a lot of our partners, are companies that have or do want to make web games or have tried making web games without tooling and then realize it's a nightmare without any tools. And then they approach us, we go through an evaluation, do a bit of demos, a lot of communication back and forth, it's always good. And yeah, then we go from there.
Okay, so basically is what I'm getting is that all you need to do marketing-wise is kind of express that, hey, people, we got this new thing, and they will come to you. Are you in such a privileged place as a company?
In a way, it does. It kind of works that way, but also, we do have to be impressive. We do have to show that, yes, this definitely fits your use case. Yes, we can definitely cater to your specific needs sometimes, and that's why we have an entire tech team dedicated to developing and maintaining these tools, so that when there is a specific company, say a large company, for example, that has a specific use case, we can cater towards them. Customer service, of course, is very important. So, we do want to. We're game developers at heart, so we do want to cater towards the needs of game developers and make sure that they have everything that they need.
But yeah, it's sounds like the heavy lifting is not in the marketing, but more like a due diligence process of like exploring that what are the joint opportunities here and what is the actual use case, and then kind of tutoring around that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a case of understanding the experiences of people trying to make web games right now, because the experience is not great. And if we can make the experience a lot better, then we're essentially just helping people. People will recognize that and appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's where the Finnish game industry and obviously like the tight networks of the game industry work in your benefit, because the word catches on very fast, and like what you said, people have and companies are already coming to you despite the fact that the release is quite fresh.
Oh yeah, it's Finland is not a big country. It's an even smaller game industry. I'd like to think that live here long enough and eventually you'll meet everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, at least if you attend the biggest events, so very fast the same faces become very familiar. At this point, are there any questions from the audience? Do you want to tap into the discussion? Yeah, of course. It's more than fine. Yes. Yes, use the catch box.
Yeah, one question. I'm sorry I joined late, so I don't know if you covered this already, but I was just for the technical question. Does the UI toolkit actually is it only for the canvas, or can I manipulate like the whole website thing with it?
You can. Are you talking about, like, say you have a website or React or?
Yeah, if I have a website and I have the game embedded somewhere, but I want to like not have the information displayed just in the canvas, because I've noticed that the canvas has some at least the Unity canvas has some limitations on like the responsiveness and the ease of use compared to just using CSS and the normal website's HTML elements. So I was wondering, like, does it use the HTML elements or does it just print it to the canvas element?
By default, it uses the canvas element. To do that, what you're asking, manipulating outside the canvas element, that's where the extension of code does come into play, which you can extend the UI editor with code to actually manipulate those objects. But on the topic of the issues you're experiencing, for example, with responsiveness, again, this is where it comes into the factor of understanding the partners' and customers' needs. We have what's called logical screen size, which actually helps out with that responsiveness. So it's not something you would have to worry about. Your elements will not be stretched. They will not look terrible.
So it makes the canvas like responsive by default.
Yes.
Okay, well, that helps as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's web development at heart, at its core, and that can be tricky when it comes to different resolutions. So that's why we kind of remove that from being a problem.
Thank you for the question. Any others? Yeah.
I was going to ask, do you have any concrete games or examples that have released that use this toolkit?
Yes, so there's, I believe it's called Werewolf, which is on Zoom right now. There's Axie Infinity Raillights. We had BeatStar published on Facebook for a while, and another game called Tezatopia. But I think the licenses of those have expired, unfortunately. And you might have remembered Rambo Last Click, which was made by Zaibatsu. That was also made using the Quicksave Toolkit. And we're releasing another game, most likely before the year ends, called Treasure Tales, which was originally a Space Ape game, but now we own the IP, so it'll be another game which we release on the Facebook platform.
Yep. If you have more questions, just raise your hand and let's continue. But at this moment, I would like to tap into the topic of no code.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, like I'm trying to understand, you're working with companies who are looking for the tools to actually work in this environment and make the game development easier. Would assume that people are like tech savvy and can do the code, but you choose to like provide no-code tools. What is the, or of course you can expand around that, but still, the idea of going no-code, what's the philosophy behind that?
Of course, with no code, you do make game development easier for artists, for designers who don't have coding knowledge, yes, but also considering the technology itself. It's on the web. Usually that requires some knowledge of JavaScript or TypeScript, and when you consider the education that occurs right now, it's usually Unity and Unreal, it's usually C# and C++. So, typically in game development, JavaScript and TypeScript are not being taught. So if we can make that gap a bit easier for people to cross into creating web games using our tools by removing the need to learn a new programming language, then that's why we went no code, because we can remove that gap.
That's very interesting, and I really believe that it works with the onboarding. And a thing I would like to ask is that, well, how fast can you get someone who has never made web games before to actually make their first game with your toolkit? Like, can you produce something like viable in a game jam, or how is it?
Yeah, we actually had one of our partners use our tools for a game jam. Can't remember if it was, I think it might have been Sapia, or it might have been Zaibatsu. I don't remember. But yeah, they actually did use our toolkit for a game jam. And on the topic of like speed, that's a great point to bring up, because one of the reasons why we have the toolkit is because it allows us to quickly create games for the web by removing a lot of the typical overhead you would encounter when making games without a toolkit. So in the past, how long have I been working? 3.5 years I've been working for Quicksave. We've released maybe 6 or 7 games in that time. Werewolf, Beatstar, Tezatopia, that one I can't talk about. That one. Okay, about 6 games. So yeah, that's a lot for 3.5 years.
And that's the ones that you released.
Yes.
Yeah,
not talking about the ones that we have not released.
Yeah, is there like basically like how fast is the iteration loop? Like how many projects get started in a year, and like?
I would say maybe 2 or 3 projects per year.
All right.
Yeah, and it's not a big team either, because we have the game development team, then we also have the tech team, which focuses solely on the tools themselves.
So I always try to bring this discussion to the perspective of our largest audience, which is the game dev students here in Jyväskylä. If we think about like people who are now graduating to the industry and basically have like a basic understanding of how to make games. They have made their like releases all the way through the publishing pipeline, usually with Unity, and they understand the teamwork and all of that. So what opportunities does your toolkit provide for these kind of people, and how would you recommend they proceed it?
Well, it's important to consider when you're publishing games for the web. There's a lot less hassle of dealing with pushing updates to your game via Steam or on the App Store or Play Store. That when it comes to actually publishing games to the web, you simply have some web hosting service, and then you just push your updates. You're good to go. And of course, if you're graduating and you're looking to be part of a company or run your own company, then you also have to consider the business prospects. Where are you publishing your games? Will you be publishing it on, say, like if you're making a game with Unity, will you be publishing it to Steam or the App Store or some other service that'll take a cut of your transactions as well? And essentially you have a lot of red tape to deal with when it comes to those platforms. And the nice thing about publishing web games is that you can avoid that red tape. You can avoid having somebody stick their hand inside of in your pie and just take a handful of it. Aye, aye.
Nice sales pitch. But if we then turn that around, on the other hand, these platforms provide quite big communities who already are looking for the similar type of games on the same platform and these kind of benefits. So are there any, I don't know, caveats or challenges that you need to consider when you're releasing web games? Like tech-wise, it sounds very easy, but what about how to make sure that people actually find your game?
I would say it's a lot easier to market something on the web than it is to market something in the App Store. Typically, whatever you create will get swallowed up by the hundreds of thousands of other similar style games on that store to begin with. I mean, we've already seen quite a few examples of that within Finland, of people seeing like, yes, merge games are quite popular. Let's all make a merge game. And of course, nothing tops Merge Mansion right now, and everything else just gets swallowed up in the influx of thousands of other merge games that exist, not even reaching the point of Merge Mansion. So yeah, it's just something that if you want to talk about making a game with web technology, that is a huge selling point itself, because you're using something that's an emergent technology to begin with. If you're talking about it deviating away from an oversaturated marketplace, that is also a major point to use web technologies as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and the red ocean effect of these platforms is very real. But okay, you used merge games as an example, but say you were to make a merge game on the web. So how would you then proceed about its discoverability, and what could you do better than that you can do on the App Store?
Well, when you have these platforms like Facebook, like Zoom, like the other several that are up and coming, they're all hungry for games. And they're all very much, this has been our experience so far, they're all very much willing to market the games that you make. So being on the ground floor, being one of the early adopters and early publishers of web games actually behooves you, because then you have these major platforms that are more than willing to actually put forth money and effort into marketing your game for you.
And that's a really good tip, and a selling point of for example, people who are perhaps considering what type of company they could start around games, or what would be the thing that they would pursue in these times when we are seeing that the free-to-play is kind of seems to be saturated in a way, and people are looking for what is the next big thing in games, and there seems to be a lot of disruption in the industry, so that there are many new trends, but nothing is as big and kind of all-inclusive as the free-to-play tended to be. So what you're kind of selling here is a big opportunity. Want to comment on that? Do I get it right? So basically, working with these platforms like Facebook, you said that they're hungry for games, but what's the process like? Is it easy to access?
Yeah, it is easy to access in a way. Since we're talking about this, I actually just remembered something extremely silly, that even LinkedIn now has games too. And I remember looking at that and thinking yes, soon my calculator app will have games. What else will have games? It's just like every platform wants games now. And admittedly, certain platforms can do better with their discoverability. But because, again, they're so willing to actually have games on their platform, they're so willing to listen to the game developers who are making games for their platforms, it actually creates this nice symbiosis where we're able to communicate hey, we need this, please do it for us, or please push it for us. And then they also say, hey, we're more than willing to promote your game on our platform.
Well, to me that sounds intriguing, at least like a real opportunity. We have our last minutes over here, but there's still time for a few questions from the audience. So can we pass the mic to the back row? And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so my question is that you were talking about like the marketing, like kind of like how you kind of do it and so on platforms like Facebook and like Zoom and what you reference to. My question is, how much like competition do you see like across the products? Because in my mind, you kind of are fighting for that market space against other products than games as well. So how do you kind of like take that kind of like perspective into account as well? Because for example, in App Store, people might be just looking for games, or if they're going to Steam, they're like looking for games. But in that kind of space, you're kind of like having all the products that the specific person is getting marketed to. So how kind of do you solve that problem, or what do you think about it overall?
I actually like that question because it plays into the factor of like community economics. Facebook, a decade ago, like why was Facebook Facebook? Facebook got really popular. They reached a point where they grew their user base to the point where they could not have any more users. That the younger generation wasn't joining Facebook, but like the people on Facebook just stayed there. They just marinated there. Some people even died there. But Facebook just had that entire group of people there. And what they realized was that they needed more people to interact with the platform. They need more people to have something to do on the platform. So it really ends up not being an issue of like, yes, people are coming to Facebook for social media, for social networking. It's more so they're coming to Facebook for some interactivity, to do something on Facebook, which kind of works out well for us because it's not us competing against the platform. It's the platform promoting us to give more users a reason to stay on the platform. And if the games attract new users, that's just icing on the cake.
So basically these platforms, when they're trying to, optimize their engagement and so on, they basically use your product as a way to engage certain audiences, and like they're doing the job for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually quite convenient to also recognize when you're creating web games and web technologies, or like web games, that usually one of the easiest things to do is to already find a community that is looking for web games or something, or some form of interactivity and some form of engagement. And you'd honestly be surprised at how many other platforms, non-social media platforms that are out there that are trying to also break into games as well and also have other forms of engagement for their users, which I can't talk about, but I would love to. NDAs are killing this industry.
Right now, we're coming to the end of the broadcast. So, are there any final words that you would like to say? Some like final thoughts about this for the audience?
Yes. Yes, I am here representing Quicksave, of course, but please talk to me about IGDA Finland or IGDA in general, and Finnish Game Jam as well. Love talking about those things, and yeah, I am also quite approachable. I've received comments in the past where people have seen me at events and they don't want to come up and talk to me because I seem a bit intimidating, but I promise I'm not that scary. I'm more so of a goofy guy who talks a lot.
At least I'm managing here, so I recommend you talk to Ren as well. Thank you so much, first of all, for traveling to Jyväskylä and joining us here on site, providing your excellent presentation and all this insight and inspiring words about the opportunities in the HTML5 and WebGL space.
Yeah, it's been great. I like Jyväskylä. It's a bit dark, but it's nice. I like it here.
Yeah, I believe it's most of Finland at the moment.
Yeah.
Anywho, thank you so much once again. Let's give a big round of applause for Ren. And for the online visitors and listeners, this ends our broadcast for now. But for the people on site, we will have some free mingling. There's Halloween snacks and all that nice. And then we also have some demo corner activity and open mic, the opportunity to present your games and talk about other interesting stuff. So let's stick around and continue. But for now, this is the end of the official part. Thank you once again, and see you next year, actually, because we won't be having any more meetups this year as we have the ExpaJKL coming up. So in November, on November 14th, we have the day 0 here, open doors at the DGC, and on November 15th, we have the ExpaJKL business seminar coming up in Ilokivi. So those are the big efforts that we're going for. But yeah, I hope to see you there. If you haven't got your tickets yet, go to expasjkl.com and get them now. With those words, thank you for all the online people, and see you. Bye-bye. And for the